Hey everybody, welcome back to Endure, the Athlete Story. Today's guest, we have Owen Martin. Owen is an Ironman triathlete and has competed in 10 Ironman World Championships in Kona and will be heading to his 11th this year. Owen's also a triathlon coach and he runs the Ventoux Cycling Studio in Armagh. In this episode we hear all about Owen's preparation for Ironman and how he specifically trains to prepare for Kona, and it's a great episode. Loads of coaching tips, loads of training tips, and his positivity and determination is just motivating and inspiring. So for anyone that has gone to 10 Konas is unbelievable, and you'll definitely get a lot of inspiration and motivation from this episode. As usual, these episodes are sponsored by EJX2 Coaching. I'm a triathlon coach with a background in sports science, and I also provide lactate testing for anyone based in the northwest of Ireland. If you're interested in getting some coaching or just looking for some advice in general, please feel free to get in touch. I'd love to get a chat to you and help you towards your goals. You can email me on ejx2coaching@hotmail.com, or you can message me on Facebook or Instagram at ejx2coaching. So without further ado, let's get into it. Owen Martin, welcome to Endure, the Athlete Story. Thanks for coming on the show. How's things?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Owen, if you could just take us back first and tell us a bit about yourself, how you get into triathlon and that kind of thing.
Well, to be doing triathlon now, I think from 2004, I think was my first one. 2004 was my first one. 2005 was my first Ironman. And most people know anyway, I played football for most of my life and then done quite a bit of running, although never competitively. And then I got into triathlon, and I've been doing it from, as I said, the first one 2004, first Ironman 2005, and I've been going since that. So that was the beginning anyway. Yeah.
And you mentioned you played football there. Was that from childhood right through? Was that at what level did you play? Or
I played from under 10, so the local. I think even as a youngster, I was not hyperactive, but I always needed to be doing something. So I played football from under 10 right up to senior football. I was selected for county football as well. So I've been involved in some form of sport from 10 below under 10, so.
Yeah. And just to clarify, it's Gaelic football, GA?
Yes.
You play? Yeah. You play any soccer or?
No, never did.
Just GA. Good stuff.
Yeah, big GA, and then done quite a bit of kickboxing as well.
Okay, good stuff.
And so GA, kickboxing, and a bit of swimming, but again, never competitively.
And then, so at what kind of age were you when you got into triathlon?
Well, I'm 48 now, and I started in 2004. So I'm sure there's some smart people out there I can work out the calculation. I must have been early 30s, because I think my first age 30, 34. So it had to be.
It's fair to say it's like pretty late to start triathlon when you think of the kids nowadays are starting when they're 12, 13, and they're elite by their 20s. So how was that transition for you? Did you feel you had a pretty good level of fitness when you started, or was it a shock to the system?
No, it wasn't a shock to the system. I've always been relatively fit, but in terms of whenever I know it may seem as if I come into triathlon fairly late, but that was almost the standard of things in those days. 30, mid to late 20s and early 30s was seen as actually very young to be in those days. And it's not really until probably I've actually noticed it myself now in the last few years, 2, 3, 4 years, where whenever I was racing in the first few years, there was very, very, very few younger lads there in the younger age groups, the 20 to 25, the 25 to 29s, and now there's actually quite a lot. But so it's certainly becoming, even the mid to long distance game now. There's more and more youngsters coming into it, because I think there's more and more youngsters, doing either competitive swimmers, competitive bikers, or competitive runners from an early age now, and then just making that natural transition to triathlon. Which is good to see. It's good to see. I'm just glad I don't have to, they're quite.
That's it. And when you got into triathlon, was it just for the crack at the start and then you got hooked on it, or what made you decide to be still doing it all these years later and at a high level?
It was just originally it was just for the crack. I was actually meant to do a relay for the Belfast Marathon, and my partner didn't turn up, and I was a bit ticked off. And I went for a bit of lunch that afternoon, and I met a friend, and he suggested the Kona triathlon was taking place the following weekend, and he said, "Well, so I would do that." And I didn't own a bike. I had a pair of running shoes. I didn't own a wetsuit. So I borrowed a local guy had a ski-doo, and I borrowed his ski-doo wetsuit, borrowed a bike, and off I went. And I did this triathlon. As I said, I was running, so I was fit enough, but not nowhere near compared to what I would be now. And I did the swim, did the bike, and did the run, and I loved it. I was just completely hooked, playing a sinkered. And that day after Kamla, I was changing in the back of a van with one friend who had competed in Ironman Frankfurt on the year before that. It was his first Ironman, and I was in total amazement at this distance he had done, because I had just completed a sprint triathlon and I was nearly dead. And, so for me, it was very, very intriguing that this 3.8k swim, 112 mile bike, and a marathon after that. I just thought there was an absolute impossibility to do, judging on how I felt after the first sprint triathlon. But about a week or two later, I signed up for the first Ironman, which I did the following year.
Very good.
So that was my progression: sprint, Ironman. There was nothing in between.
That's not the usual path. There's usually a bit of a build up. What Ironman was it?
It was Austria.
And how was that experience on the day?
It was great. It was great. It was just even thinking back of it now, it was just so exciting. And I would have seen some videos and some pictures of guys in Ireland who would have done Ironmans and stuff before, and for me it was just totally fascinating, this distance, and almost impossible in my mind. Like, well, hopefully I can do it. And it was just the buzz of the whole Ironman show that they do put on, because they do put on quite a good show, and it was fantastic. I loved it. And I was hooked, line and sinkered from that first race in Austria.
And in your preparation for that one, because now for anyone that follows you on Instagram, or if you don't follow on Instagram, get over and follow him, because he's got some great, you put up videos and some advice, coaching and stuff. But you can tell that you're extremely disciplined now. You obviously do a lot of training. You've power, heart rate, all measurements, and you put up some data and stuff. It's really interesting to follow. But back then, training for your first Ironman, did you have a clue what you were doing? Because I think a lot of people have to just wing it in their first one. Or were you getting advice from or coaching?
No clue whatsoever. I had no idea. My training plan in those days was, I got up and I looked out the window and I said, what will I do today? And I would probably swim. So if I swam, the swim would be the only session of the day, or a run or a bike. So it was only ever one session of a day. And then on a Saturday, whatever long bike I did do, I would probably do a 15 or 20 minute run off the bike. I can't remember what volume I did, but it couldn't have been too big. And it got me through rightly. I think the longest swim I actually did before I actually went to the race was 3K. And I thought, well, I can swim 3K, so surely I can get through 3.8K. And I only actually swam 3K twice. So I have no idea how I got through the swim. It was just by the grace of God, I suppose. But it's a good thing. Going back to what you said a few moments ago, it's a point I would disagree with. But lots of people think that to do an Ironman, they need to go through a certain route. It needs to be sprint, it needs to be Olympic, and then they need to do a couple of halves, and then they need to go for an Ironman. I completely disagree with that. Totally. and it's not that I was any sort of a special athlete or anything like that. It was just, people should have a bit more faith in themselves. You know, there's no doubt. If you do a sprint this year, you know, you could probably even do an Ironman in the same year, or certainly the next year. I'm not for that. There's a progression. You know, you need to do this and build yourself up, but you don't. None of us do. Because I certainly, as I mentioned, had no natural talent at long distance swimming, biking 112 mile, and most certainly running a marathon. So it's doable. It's very, very doable. People shouldn't.
Yeah, because they're essentially different. They're the same sport, but they're completely different disciplines. It's like different training and different preparation for nutrition and stuff. So the difficult parts of training for a sprint and getting that right, of being fast as you can but recovered, and that you don't have as much maybe of a headache when you're doing Ironman. It's more just the basic endurance you need to build up. So I think you're right. I agree with you. Yeah, although the most common progression is up through, or a few years at a certain distance and then progress on, but you can certainly go straight for it. And then how did that build on then on the getting the more where you're at now, of knowing your body, training properly after that next Ironman?
So when I done the first one, I knew straight away I was definitely going to do a second one. And so did the first one in Austria, and then again, the guys I was hanging around at the time, he said, well, where will we go next year? And I think the second one was Switzerland. Again, not really, I had no coaching or anything at all for the next year. I just knew, you know, I just did more of the same, really. And, you know, like when I did stuff I wouldn't even dream about doing now, but when Austria did take place, I thought I was the ultimate legend in the whole of the world, and came home, and as far as I was concerned, I had achieved everything that had to be achieved. And, you know, went on probably the beer for about 3 or 4 weeks after that. And whatever bit of weight I lost, I put it all back on again. And then it came Christmas. And I can remember it very vividly. You know, so I started, say, in January to train towards my second Ironman, which is Ironman in Switzerland. And I just put every bit of weight back on that I'd, you know, I went from, I lost about 10 kilos or something like that there, training for the first Ironman. And I put it all back on again. And I was just ticked off myself. Couldn't believe I did this. But again, I got back into good enough shape. I went and done Ironman Switzerland. And because I'd done one Ironman, I thought I knew everything that there was to know about Ironman. And, you know, I swam the swim fairly hard, probably too hard. And then I got on the bike, and I thought I was the world's best time trialist. And I would just beat everybody on the bike. You know, I was just another fool, you know, just bombing it. And, you know, I can remember going up, so there was some quite steep climbs, and that's at the old course. I'm not too sure what it's like now. And, you know, I just remember just trying to beat everybody to the top of the hill, and then having to freewheel the whole way down because I was already knackered. And, you know, got to the run, and I may have ran or jogged, if you want to call that, the first 10K, and then it was walking, and it was the whole thing. And then actually didn't feel too bad. The last 10K was the quickest of all, but that's probably because I walked so much in the middle too.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did it, and I learned a lot of lessons that year. But I loved it, you know. I loved that, like, sprint triathlons, duathlons, Olympic triathlons they're not even painful, but you just have to go so hard. You're never at no stage really, really hard on an Ironman, or you shouldn't be any. And that slow type of suffering, I just loved it, you know. And I love the feeling you get afterwards, the self of achievement, the many months of preparation that has to go into it, and it's a reward, you know. And so that was the second one, and again, I did the exact same when I came home. The second one, I probably went on the beer for 3 or 4 weeks, and did all of the good that I'd done in the previous years, and got myself back to the following January. And I think the third one then was Lanzarote, and what a one to pick. And that's probably that. The year I did Lanzarote was the first time I'd ever been on the island of Lanzarote, and that was a big mistake, you know. It's the only race, actually, Ironman I've ever done to date, where the night before the race, I was so petrified of the next day that if Ashton had said to me, you know, we'll go home tomorrow morning instead of doing it, I definitely would have went home. I was so petrified. I was actually physically sick. I was just like, even though I can think about it, I just did not want to do the race the next morning at all. But pure nerves, just pure fear, pure nerves. It was one of those, it was windy all the time in Lanzarote, but the sea was very, very windy, and I just got super intimidated by the conditions. And, you know, 400 meters into the swim, I can remember laughing to myself, going, "What were you worried about? You're an idiot."
Mm-hmm.
And a great race, you know. It
Yeah.
was one of my slower races because of it was really, really hot and really, really windy that year. But it's just one of those races, and every race I've done ever since, I've learned something from it, even in those early days to right up to where I am now.
Mm-hmm. I would say racing in Lanzarote would be absolutely brutal. I've trained there for a week, and
Yeah,
it's just one, and the bike,
yeah,
every time you go out on the bike, it's just tough. You're just
yeah.
it's just
But
tough. And the run, I
that's
would say, would be tougher, but I suppose that's part of it. And you said you were really nervous before that race. Was it what could you take from that now into your next races, or now that they deal with those nerves? Or
yeah. Well, as I said, like even I honestly don't know how many Ironmans I've done, but it's probably 20 plus or whatever it is. It has to be 20 plus, 20, 25, whatever it is. But even to my most recent ones, there hasn't been a race that I've come away with that I've actually that I have not learned something.
mm-hmm.
Because we all, if you think you know everything about Ironman racing, no matter if you're first time or 20 or 30 or whatever it is, you're a fool, because it's a non-stop learning thing. And maybe the older you get, the wiser you get. We all make mistakes. In the first 2 or 3 years, I wasn't getting coached because it really wasn't a thing in those days. It's many people were getting coached in those days, and I just didn't know. But I still got through the race okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you do, and then you just become wiser and learn by your mistakes. If you don't learn by your mistakes, then you're a true idiot. And yeah, so it's all a part of the journey. The race is a part of the journey, and for me anyway, and I enjoy the learning process. I enjoy obviously the competition. I really enjoy the training, as everybody else should do too. And probably as the years have gone on, I've learned to take it. Even though I want to be extremely competitive and I train to be competitive and stuff, I've certainly, and again, this is probably through age, I've become a lot more wiser and taken the pressure off myself.
Yeah.
Going to your question, in Lanzarote, I just put so much pressure on myself. No, I didn't. In those days, I didn't know I didn't even hear about Kona. I didn't even know about Kona when I got there.
Mm-hmm.
But I let the course intimidate me so much. I let the conditions. I said, "Oh, geez, it's going to be so windy tomorrow. I'm never going to be able to bike the bike." I completely talked myself out of the race because of the conditions, because it was going to be windy. And I actually drove the course twice, which was a big mistake. And I just freaked myself out. I was freaking myself out of stuff that I had no control over whatsoever. None. I can't control the wind. I can't control those hills. They're just facts, and they're going to be there. And so I took that into other races, and it's probably more so in even Kona. It will be what it'll be. If it's going to be very, very hot, or if it's going to be very, very windy, or whatever happens to be, there's stuff that you cannot control. But you have to control the controllables, as I said, and then generally you'll be fine.
And just as you touched on there on Kona, at what point did you hear about Kona and realize it was something that you could qualify for? And first, for a bit of context, how many Konas have you been to, competed at?
10. So I've been to 10 so far, and I have qualified. Well, 2020 I was meant to be number 11, so all going well. In a few months' time, or whatever it is, 18, 19 weeks, will be number 11.
That's unbelievable. 10 Konas and heading to your 11th, which is a lot. But is there anyone else that you know of that is age grouper in Ireland even that has been to that many? Or
I don't know, not in Ireland. I'm sure there is maybe around the world, but I don't. There's a few lads in Ireland that has done. I know Martin Doon. I think he's done 7 or 8. This could be Martin Kilby was saying that I think it's 7 or 8. Declan Silas competed over there quite a lot. I'm sure he's either at 10 or something like that. Ivan O'Gorman, based over in Boulder, he's been there quite frequently as well. So there is quite a few lads out there that has been there. 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 times. I don't think anybody. Well, I've only been there 10 times, so I haven't been there 11. So, but
only.
Yeah, well,
and it's a massive feat in itself to qualify, because you have to do an Ironman to qualify, isn't that right? You can't just rock up to Kona and decide you're doing it. You have to go and do an Ironman, which is usually somewhere else in the world. So it's even the logistics of doing an Ironman the start of the year and qualifying and then getting ready for Kona again the next year. What are the qualifying? Is the qualifying process, is it top 3 in any Ironman race, or it just depends? Or
yeah, more or less. As more like at the moment, if you want to qualify, you have to fit, depending on your age group, of course. Have to qualify. Apart from the younger age groups, but certainly, say my age group was 45, 49. There's generally 3 slots, so it's they finish first, second, and third, and that's really it. And even in these years, they don't really roll down all that much. And the year I think the first year I qualified from Frankfurt, there was 20 slots. That's very unheard of. Is simply because the amount of athletes there is and the amount of races that there is on the thing. But yeah, so if you want to go to Kona, you need to be thinking of getting first, second, or third at least in your age group, and then but sometimes it rolls down fourth, fifth, and sixth. But you can't be banking on getting a roll down. You have to go with the intention of either coming on one of the top steps anyway.
And then, so did you qualify for Kona after your first Ironman in Frankfurt?
No.
Did you say? No.
So it was Austria, it was Switzerland, it was Lanzarote. I done Frankfurt, and then the next year I went back. I done Frankfurt 2 years in a row. I qualified this year, and just go back to your question. Like in those first years, I'd never even heard of Kona. Didn't even know what it was. Or where it was, and it wasn't until a friend of mine, Liam Dolan, he had qualified the year before me, and just someone said to me, "God, Liam qualified for Kona," and I'm going, "Well, what's in Kona? Where is Kona?" And even it wasn't until he actually did the race and completed the race where it actually made me stand up to attention. And what is this place, Kona? And he did it, and he done his race, and he came home, and then it was coming near Christmas, and the two of us went out for a couple of beers, and I was inquisitive. Well, what is this place? So what's the story? And he just told me all about it, and I remember it was in Brewbakers in the dock, and I can remember saying, "Well, I'll be there next year." And so, and I realized that I don't know if I could do it, but I was coming to a reasonable standard. I think that at that year I had just done, I think it was 9:49 or something like that in Frankfurt, and probably wouldn't have got me a Kona slot, and I knew that I would need to improve to get that Kona slot. But it's just me. Once I committed, I didn't know if I'd get it or not, but I knew I was going to try, and I did.
Good stuff. And then was it consecutive 10 years in a row that you went then?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that journey then, when you're qualified for Kona and you're so many months out. And is that just a massive motivator just every day to just get out and train, and the excitement of getting out there and racing?
When you have already qualified? When
you have qualified, when it's secured, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think when you've already qualified, for me, qualifying is the cream on the top of the cake. There's no pressure after that. Once you've qualified, of course, if you've qualified for your first time, I qualified, and all I wanted to do was get there, and I got there just blown away by the whole spectacle that Kona is. So qualifying is the most difficult part, and most of the work for me anyway, most of the focus and drive is for actual qualifying. And then once I qualify, or if I qualify, the pressure goes off me, because then all I really have to do is go back into Ironman training mode. At the end of the day, it is just the race. It's just a very special and fantastic place. So I don't need much motivation, or any motivation to know there's a race over. It's easy. It really, really is easy, but you have to qualify for the hard bit.
And when you get out there, tell us about how that feels like when you're out there and you see the pros are out and about and everyone's out in the fancy bikes and training, and is that just another buzz on top of the buzz that you already have? And
I've been there 10 times, and even thinking about it makes me so excited now. It's special. It's really, really special. I think for people who have never been there, and I know we all see it on YouTube and videos and all this type of stuff, it's quite a small place. It's a very, 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 very small place. The island, I know it's a big enough island, but the location of where the race takes place, it's probably only about a 200-meter stretch of road. And the beach itself, if you put 15 people standing on the beach, it's crowded. Not until you go out of the bay where obviously those famous open water swim footage starts. But it's a small, tiny town, and it's nice, the whole build up, and we follow all our pros and our idols on YouTube and Instagram and all these places, and you're sitting beside them in the cafes, having on the roads with them. 1 year myself and Martin actually rode back in the road with Jan Ferdinand, and it's great, it's just special. And it's just, for me, it's a reward for all of the effort and hard work and dedication, and it's just difficult to qualify. It's really difficult, and to get there, then the pressure's off. The pressure really is off, and it's like not a pat on the back, but it's well done, you're here, and enjoy it when you're here.
And can you do you let yourself enjoy it in the race, even though it's going to be tough, it's going to be hot, it's going to be difficult? You just enjoy that, and you're well trained for it. So
yes and no. Like for the first year especially, I didn't, I know all I wanted to do was be there. I wanted just to finish the race, and that was it. And even the second and third year, that's really all I wanted to do. And then, it's just I think in my nature to be competitive, or want to be competitive. And then I realized, well, actually, number one, I've qualified consecutive years, so I mustn't be all that bad. And, for a number of years now, I've been I have the ability, but just to get on the podium in Kona in my age group. So I've been chasing that for a few years, and I can't be down on myself because of a couple of one bike accident, nutritional strategies, got them wrong. Just stuff has happened, but that's, you have to accept that. It can't all be broken garden, and stuff happened for a reason, and I won't give up. And I'll give up on my terms, but I certainly won't give up on. I can't do it because I know I can do it, and I'm going to keep chasing till I do it.
How important is patience? They have to wait for like a full year for that to come back around, keep the head, get back on the training. Is that important for any athlete, but for yourself?
Yeah, well, patience is definitely key, but I know it's a full year. The last 3 or 4 years, I've qualified about 5 weeks after Kona. So I don't know, many years ago I competed in Kona 1 year, and then I said, you know what, I'll go to Arizona. Arizona was 4 or 5 weeks after Kona, and it's something I'd never done before. And I said, well, I'll go to Arizona, I'll race, because number one, it was a race I wanted to do. It's a location that I wanted to do. And I said, well, if I go, and if I qualify, well and good. And if I don't qualify, well, no big deal. I have a full year, so I can take off. And then from January, I can go and do Frankfurt, Austria, anywhere at all, really, and try and re-qualify. So it was just a gamble I took. And the gamble, so I done Kona. 5 weeks later, I qualified again then for the following Kona. And it was just great.
Yeah.
Even like from a financial terms, it gives you a full year to save up and to plan your trip, and it's just, for me, it left everything very, very easy for a full year. And January's, February's, March's, there's no racing for anybody, maybe a couple of duathlons, but in normal years, I would try and do a half Ironman certainly at the end of April, maybe May, and whatever locals ones is here. And so there's always racing to do pre-Kona. So it's not that you're going to get bored. You shouldn't be getting bored. And at the end of the day, just trying to keep yourself in a proper training structure that you're peaking for Kona. And that's it, really. I don't really find that end of it difficult at all.
Yeah. And you mentioned there on a goal is to get in the podium, an age group podium in Kona, which is a massive, massive achievement. How close have you been to that? And do you think it's something within your grasp now in the next Kona coming up?
Yeah, I think my best was, I don't know, I think it was 14th, 15th or something like that. Something's telling me 11, but that could be wrong. But I was definitely in the ballpark figure, and I wasn't that far at all. So it's not that it's a goal that's pie in the sky. It's something that there's no doubt I can do.
Because that'd be the hundreds in your age group there. How many being? Yeah, there's hundreds in each age group, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, generally the 40, 44, 45, 49 are the two major age group. So there's probably 450 to 500 in the age group, and every year in the top end of that. Well, most years apart from mechanicals and stuff. But yeah, so it's a we all have to have goals and dreams, and I think whenever you're grumpy and you're looking out the window when it's raining and stuff, and if you don't have a goal, whether it's a podium in Kona or whatever it happens to be, how are you ever going to motivate yourself to take it out the door? And especially find it now with even athletes, you look around, and because we've all been in this lockdown for so long, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing people so sort of demotivated. I think we've all been, well, not me anyway, people have been conditioned that this is the new. And I think people are finding it hard to get their mind back into, well, racing's going to happen now, and we need to do it, So yeah, it's exciting too, I suppose.
Yeah. And you just mentioned there, like, people being motivated, and you have to have dreams, and if you don't, how do you find the motivation? What advice have you got for somebody that maybe has just started triathlon? They're fairly average because they're new to it, but what, like, they give them that belief that they can be good, like yourself coming into it. You weren't have a background in elite level at any of the three. You just worked hard at it and got to where you are. What have you got advice wise for someone in that position?
I think you answered the question. It's simple. I definitely had no talent at swimming. I had no talent at biking, and I had no talent at running at all. I was okay. I was generally up, but I was certainly no high-end elite type athlete, and I came into it. And the only thing I had is a will to win and a will to succeed and patience. Depending on your distance, on your chosen distance, like, it just takes patience. Sometimes it frustrates me. I see people coming into the sport and to think that, January, February, and March, and then we sort of get into shape, and then everybody thinks that they're good to go come April and May, and it's not. It's even athletes who I work with now, depending on their level, it's a 2 or 3 year project at a minimum.
Yeah.
And it's only the people who I know who perform continually year after year in Kona. You see mostly the same people, mostly the same age groupers there year after year after year. And whenever you sit there and you talk to them, and you feel as if you're almost talking to yourself, because you see the same drive, the same motivation, the same will to win. That for me is the classic A+ type athlete. They show the resilience, they show the patience, they show the will to win, they show everything. And every athlete, regardless of his or her ability at the moment, can do that if they have the patience to commit to it and don't expect magic to happen in the first 6 months or even the first year of their training. And remember that it's not all about the end goal. You sort of need to be sort of kind to yourself. It's the bit in between that's the fun, and if you're putting pressure on yourself to perform, or geez, I have to do this and have to do that, and you shouldn't do it really. Then training is enjoyable. I enjoy training. I love swimming. I love biking. I love running, and it's not a job to me. I love it, and I think that's what probably has made me so consistent for so many years, because I don't find the struggle. I just love it so much. And that, I think, is what happens maybe other people, where they lose patience after a while, and then they sort of give up on the dreams, big or small, and I don't know, that's probably where the elite sort of push ahead, and the others just are wiggling around in no man's land.
I think it's great advice. Just the patience and the enjoyment of it, and the consistency over years. You say it's at least a 2 to 3 year project from beginning, starting out, to getting to a decent level. And you might have the very, very small minority that are talented and get better in a year or something, but for the vast majority of us, it's a long-term process, and just staying around long enough, enjoying it long enough, do you see how good you can get, I think.
And it's setting goals, and like even I always say to people, and it's something I did do years ago, I sat down, I wrote down 3 of my goals, and one was what I thought was completely unrealistic, but I still wrote it down anyway. And then the other 2 were, okay, if I work hard, I can get this, or I can do this, and I got all 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easier said than done, but I think it's different in these days compared to whenever I started first. There was a couple of guys who I could call on for experience, but even whenever I look back, they even weren't even that experienced. But at least they had experience for me. And for us all now, we're constantly surrounded with social media and coaches, and there's just a vast wealth of knowledge out there. There's like no athlete should have any excuse to not be able to put themselves on the right road.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everybody needs to be coached, but it'll definitely help for starters anyway. And some can go it alone, some think they can go it alone, but it's just there's no reason to go it alone anymore, because there's so many people out there that can help us all.
Yeah.
Regardless of what level you're at, so and you never be afraid to ask for that help.
Yeah. That's good stuff. And I think just based on what you're saying there, writing down goals and stuff, we had Steve True on the show last week. His episode was out on Wednesday, and he was saying, I was asking him similar thing about what advice would he have, and for young people in particular, but he said, don't just say, I want to be good. Like, write down what you want. You want to swim this time, and go after that goal and enjoy that process of it, rather than just, I think sometimes people are afraid to say goals and because people laugh at them. I want to run 15 minutes for 5K, and you're currently at 22 minutes. Then you think they'll get laughed at. But I think, as you say there, you have to dream big, and you have to have a goal that scares you, and you think, well, I might not do that, but go for it and see what happens. Because if you land even just short of it, it's probably still better than where you're at the moment.
But at least you'll have tried and then proved the doubters wrong, because there are so many people out there with negative attitudes, and their only job is to shoot people down with dreams. And for me personally, I get it too. There's so many people out there but thankfully I'm surrounded by mostly positive people. And for me, one of my main things is I definitely surround myself with positive people. For the simple reason is, why would you waste your time on negative people? Because all their job in life is to drag you down. And it's just, you need to do that. You definitely need to do that. And in terms of, I love being able to do something or do something and hear those little remarks here and there and put the finger up to them whenever I do it.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Who's laughing now, my man?
That's it. It's a good motivation at the same time. So it's good to have people like that, maybe. Owen, just tell us a bit about now, where you're at now in the years you've built up of training, experience, racing. What does your typical training look like at the moment? So you're well experienced, well trained, training for Kona in October. What's it looking like at the moment for you?
So I think today is 18 weeks out from Kona. So even the whole way through last year, even when we knew Kona wasn't going to take place, the COVID thing, I kept on training as if Kona was going to take place, because for me, I never want to come down to a level where I make it really difficult to get back up again, a decent level of fitness. And again, I do believe Kona definitely will take place this year. It's just I'm just hoping that travel will open up to allow us to travel over to it, which I believe it will. So 18 weeks out at the moment, and things are ramping up. Good news, I have a 70.3 in a few weeks' time, and sort of prepping for that and a couple of Olympics and stuff. And so it's going to be busy enough, and it's just getting those miles in. I know what needs to be done, and because I've done it for so long, so I'm really repeating what I have done for the last 10 years. Yeah, give or take. So it's just more of the same, and then learn from my mistakes from previous years and tweaking nutrition, tweaking equipment, just little marginal gains I can get, because and it is marginal gains at this level of stuff. I'm never going to get 30 minutes or 40 minutes, because I'm not really at the beginner level. So it's just small stuff I'm looking for.
Yeah. And what would your like training philosophy be for training for an Ironman? Is it high volume? Although I know just from your Instagram and some videos you done, like you do train a lot and a lot of volume. Would that be your main thing of getting miles in, and what intensity and controlling your intensity at every session, or have you more free reign and things?
Yeah, well, different athletes are there's horses for courses, and different athletes react to different types of training differently. I'm just a diesel engine, and for me to I react very well to high volumes of training, very, very high volumes of training, and I get a good bit of fitness out from it. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Ironman racing, is it's not fast. You're never really swimming that hard. You're never actually biking that hard, and you're not actually running that hard. It's just whenever you put them all, it's just a long bloody day that makes it so hard.
Yeah.
And for me, anyway, it's been just over the many years building a huge aerobic base off. I end up getting very, very fit, and I don't actually get that slow either, because I'm not overly too slow at the shorter or middle distances either. And it's horses for courses. It works for me. Big volume works for me, and any repeat athlete who I've ever seen going to Kona or qualifying with Kona seems to be of a similar thing. There is athletes who are tight for time and think that going the low volume, high intensity route is the way to go. It's not really the way to go. It's not. It's sustainable. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion. But it's big volume as much as you can handle. Everybody has life stresses, family, work, so on and so forth, and you just have to work with what you have available, and that's about anything else after that.
Would you have much intensity and you're training at certain times of the year as well?
Bit of intensity at the moment, building towards the 70.3s and the Olympics and stuff. But I don't know the exact figure, but I'm sure 85% to 87% of my training is low intensity.
Yeah,
it's just low intensity, lots of volume. Now, don't get me wrong, I do short, I do hard stuff, but compared to other people who I see, it's volume. It's volume over intensity, and and I'm testament to that type of training strategy. I think because if you can qualify for Kona 10 or 11 years in a row, you don't need to be a speed machine. You just need to be like resilient. You need to be a workhorse.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And are you controlling like that when you're saying low intensity? Are you working off power, heart rate? Have you been tested? Do you do any form of lab testing or anything? They get them numbers that you want to keep it under, or etc. Or
well, yeah, for many years now, like I've had my heart rate zone set. They haven't changed probably in 10 or 12 or even 13 years, whatever it is. And it's just your numbers are going to be your numbers. And in January and February and March, whenever I'm relatively unfit for me, and it's just staying under certain heart rate caps and working, and the same on the run and the same on the bike. And I don't really switch to actually power focus until I feel as if the aerobic engine is back, and even now in zone 1, zone 2, but above race pace power wise.
Yeah.
So the aerobic efficiency is there.
Yeah.
And that's really it, and for now I can do most of my sessions, if not all of my sessions, without really needing to look at heart rate, because I know exactly. I could probably tell you what the heart rate would be without even looking at my watch.
Yeah.
Simply because I'm in not race shape, but I'm in some sort of shape now. I'm not so. I use power mostly on the bike for when I'm doing race specific stuff. If I'm doing Ironman sets or 70.3 sets or something like that, there longer sets. Power for me is definitely more at the moment anyway, because of the fitness that's probably there. Heart rate is probably not the best thing to be going by. Power is probably a better metric at the moment to be going by. But that changes, when you put yourself into a heat chamber or whenever it does get hot, and heart rate is something that you do need to be on top of as well. So there's lots of that stuff that has to be done, that has to be kept an eye on. And testing. I done a few lactic tests there a while back, a few metabolic tests a while back, and head back over to England now, all going well. Hopefully, if within the 16-week period, building up to Kona just to get metabolic stuff. I don't believe it'll tell me anything different, but at least I'll know. And that's really it. And it's, for me, the main thing is getting my body able to cope with the heat and humidity.
Yeah.
With of Kona, more so with humidity, I suppose.
And are you looking at heart rate and power on the day in Kona on the bike, or are you just going off feel?
Yeah, I can't say I go off feel, because I do look at heart rate and I do look at power, but there's only really one. There's a few particular sections in Kona where you do need to watch your power and watch your heart rate. Within the first 2 or 3 miles, there's a climb up Kuakini Highway. And it's not actually a steep climb, but you're going up and up and up. And it's really easy going up to push above threshold power, because you're fresh. In the first few years, I was going up at ridiculous watts, which I think I was going to win the race. And no, but you learn with that mistake. And so at that section, you do need to keep an eye on my power. And, I've definitely, as years go on, I've gone up at a relatively low power. And I'm up to Halvey, which is quite a long climb. I could be 15, 16 mile long. And it's not overly, but it's just so sapping, and you're normally cycling into a block headwind at that stage. You will be cycling into a block headwind at that stage. So watching power there and heart rate is vital. Other than that, the rest of the time, I know when I'm going too hard, because I think when you're in peak form, your heart rate normally plays ball and your power normally plays ball, and you should know. I keep an eye on it, but I generally don't need to.
Good stuff. And just touching back on, I had a question on your training volume, like weekly now. What does a typical week look like if you were to break it down between swim, bike, run, in terms of hours? If you don't mind sharing.
No, not at all. So this week, well, this many weeks now. It's probably in around 22 to 24 hours. I've done a few 26s and 27s. Recovery weeks normally in around 18, 19 hours, something like that. And so that's
which is a lot of volume if you for obviously you're competing at a high level, but for age group athlete, that is professional numbers, and for some professionals,
it is. I fully understand that not every age group has that time, but my job is I own the bike here for me, so like my job is from 6 to 8 hours of cycling a week. So that 6 to 8 hours is combined into my training. So you have 8 hours there, say for example, anything from 6 to 8 hours of work, which is actually training.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty blessed in that form, and then so I've been lucky in that. So my job is actually riding a bike, even though not professional or anything like that there. So that does help out tremendously.
Yeah. And where is that cycling studio? And just give it a shout out there. Where's
it's Fun 2 Cycling Studio. So it's in Camla, not too far from where I live here. So yeah, it's something that you're going to work and you're putting a set of bib shorts on. So there's another. Yeah, I for me anyway, I enjoy the coaching end of things. I enjoy people who know me know I'm passionate about it, and I love helping people out. And it's a corny but true statement. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
I've found that job, and it allows me to go to work, and it allows me to do training at the same time.
Yeah. And did you just start that studio as a result of getting into triathlon, and is it only in the last few years that you've been doing the cycling studio?
No, so with COVID, we were closed there we only reopened there for 3 or 4 weeks. So we're closed of all of last year, or whatever lockdown and stuff. So we were open 3 years, I think. Maybe no, this October could be 4 years, I forget. But we were closed for 18 months of that. It's just something I've had a passion for for a long time. If you can work your job into your training,
that's ideal.
What's wrong? Good, isn't it?
That's ideal. That's so Kona this year on. What's the goal? Are you faster than before? Are you stronger than before? Are you hoping to
am I faster? Am I stronger? But I'm wiser. I think in Kona we'll all be fast and we'll all be strong, and it's such a really hard course to master in terms of the heat and humidity. But I believe I turned quite a significant milestone Kona when I qualified in 2019. I raced Kona 2019, and then I went to Cozumel in Mexico, which was 5 or so weeks after Kona, to try and re-qualify again.
Yeah,
and it's a spectacular race. So anybody out there wanting to do a race, what an unbelievable race it is. And I did qualify, and the conditions. I was going to Mexico, going, why in the name of Jesus am I going to Mexico to try and qualify for whenever I struggle so much in the heat and the humidity in Kona? Because the conditions in Cozumel in Mexico are identical almost to the ones in Kona.
Yeah.
The bike course in Cozumel is just the most flattest bike course you could ever imagine. But it is very hot and it's very humid and windy. But I learned a few, I blew up sort of in the last 10 or 12K in the run in Kona in 2019, and it was simply down to taking in too much sodium. And I thought too much sodium, yeah. So I was like, I went and I got sweat tested and all the tests I could do of the day, and took all the advice on board. And you can only do this. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out for me. I was completely overloaded with sodium, and having too much sodium on is equally as dangerous as having too little sodium. It can lead to quite bad stuff.
Yeah.
So in 2019 in Kona, that's just what happened to me. So I blew up, but I got severe cramps from too much sodium during the run in Kona. And I came home, I was ticked off a little bit. I analysed, I seen what went wrong, and I adjusted. I flew to Cozumel in Mexico, and same conditions. It was actually hotter in Mexico, and no clouds on race day. So it was just one of the really, really hot, searing, sunshiny days, and changed my nutritional plan and strategy around, and I cruised it. I absolutely cruised it. The run was pretty good for me in Cozumel. I was very controlled, was under no difficulty in any stage, and it was just simply down to changing a few simple things. First thing I did that night after I finished the race, I actually wrote down exactly what I did in the week before, what I took pre-race, during the race, and after the race was only beer. And I have that written down now. So when I get back to Kona, that will be,
it's a confidence booster.
Yeah. So so confidence booster is the correct word, because I know now I can definitely perform in the heat and humidity, and quite confident of going back and doing that. That's not to say people. For me, Kona is a bit of a magical island. If you luck and go with you, or well, you can really have no bad luck whenever you're standing on an island in Hawaii, I suppose. But I can just try my best, And I'm confident about the heat. I'm confident about the humidity, and I think with the couple of years we've all had, if I can just get there, I'll worry after that.
Good stuff. It'll be interesting to see how you get on. We'll be tuning in anyway, cheering. I noticed on Instagram when you were using the Super Sapiens, did you find that helped for your preparation?
No, I didn't. I actually stopped using it.
Okay.
So again, I do believe it's a good thing, but I put it on, and for me, I was just checking it too much. It was actually putting more stress on me.
Yeah.
Than it was actually worth. Because I was just, if I'd eat something, I'd look at it. If I'd something, and if the numbers didn't say what I wanted them to say, or I was doubting them, and for me, it was putting too much stress on me looking at blood sugar because they had a coffee and it did this, or I ate eggs and it did this, and blah. My diet's good enough. I don't need to think or watch. And I do believe probably in the next 2 to 3 years, it'll be every athlete will have it and stuff. But it was just what. Definitely, I put it in the bin, and I'd rather focus on my training than.
I know where you're coming from. I used it myself, and I think you over obsess about what this food does and what this food does. And for me, using it, I found that I'm fueled for sessions. Done some races with it on. I've been good in races with not changing anything in particular, just my normal diet. So I was happy. It was like a confirmation that I'm fueling correctly for training and racing. But I think you can over obsess. And even the other night, the 2 weeks finished, so I wasn't using it. I was like, this isn't on, so I can have a bowl of cereal with honey on it. Whereas when you're using it, you're going, I don't have honey because you don't want to see a spike or something. But it's useful, I think, if you're having trouble fueling. I think if you're finding yourself bonking a lot, or you're not
I,
getting things right.
I think if I had have continued to use it, I would have vastly underfueled.
Okay.
Because at night time, blood sugar was super stable.
Mm-hmm.
When I got up in the morning times, had my espresso and stuff, super stable. When I rode my bike for 2 to 3 hours on just protein and fast with no carbs, super stable. And then I would come home and then I would eat whatever I would eat, like generally low enough carb, but I'd get carbs in. It would just spike so much. And then for me, then I at those times of the day where I was absolutely starving, but the number was saying you're so stable. I'm looking at an app going, well, I don't really need to eat anything, even though I was absolutely starving, because this app is telling me my blood sugar is now stable. No, I'm not going to eat anything now. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah,
absolutely. So had I continued with it, I probably would have, I think it would have led to bad things, because I would have, once I get in the mood and, okay, the app says don't eat, but your body saying, please feed me. I think you need to trust your body and not the app.
Yeah, I think it's same as what you were saying earlier for like training stuff. It's different people have different ways of doing things and enjoy different data fed back to them. Some people like no data, some people like a lot of data. And I think I heard Alistair Brownlee say it once, like he doesn't do anything unless he's going to use it the next day, in terms of there's no point doing a test for lactate if he doesn't feel he's going to use them numbers next day, if he's going to go out and do the same thing. So I think it's the same with that. If you feel you need it, it's a good metric. If not, just keep eating.
I think generally if your diet is like, we don't need to be scientists to realize that our diet is either good, middle, or bad. And if you know that your diet is generally good and clean, and you're getting the correct amount of carbohydrates and fats and proteins and stuff, if you know you're eating nothing but cereals, or you're eating nothing but breads, and nothing but potatoes and all these higher starch, higher calorie, you're only fooling yourself, going, well, no, I'm actually okay, I can do this. We all know it's not rocket science, and you don't have to have a degree in nutrition to know this type of stuff. But I'm a firm believer in, we should know what's best for ourselves. But at that, there's so much help out there at the moment, and I don't know everything about the nutritional side of stuff, and I'm always willing to learn and improve and stuff. But I intend to do that in a more, not logical way, but a more safe manner, if that makes any sense, because I'm not stupid. I am wise to the whole game, and there's no way I'm putting myself into any trouble. Going back many years, go back to the first Kona, actually, and I went to the island thinking I was in the best shape of all. And I rack off the top, walk down Leahy Drive, and then you see all the guys and even the girls walking up and the 6-packs on their forehead, and Jesus Christ. And I can remember that first year, I felt so bloody paranoid, and I was in good shape. And I put my top back on, and for the whole time I was in Hawaii, I wouldn't take my top off because I felt I was too heavy, I was too overweight. And then the next year I re-qualified again, and I just completely changed my diet, went completely no or low carb, dropped a load of weight, all the 6-packs and all the veins that you want to have, but felt so crap when I was doing it. And that actually continued for about 2 or 3 years, where I was little on carb and, starving myself, going to bed hungry and doing all the stuff. Now that if somebody told me, I would go, will you wise up? Why did you even do it? But, we have to learn by our mistakes. And I learned. And so you need to be careful. You definitely need to be careful, certainly when it comes down to the nutritional side of stuff. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, there's more than enough people out there with wisdom to help you on your way.
Definitely. Good stuff. Owen, if you have a few more minutes, I think we'll finish up with a few quick fire questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
Bit of fun, but just see what your thoughts on some things are. So first up, your favorite session, favorite training session to do.
Favorite training session. think my favorite training session is those long Ironman preparation days. I just love those long sets at Ironman, and that's normally followed off by a 2-hour run off the bike.
Good stuff. Favorite training destination?
Lanzarote.
What part of the island do you usually train from, or?
Normally stay in Porto del Carmen. You go either in the hotels, or I've gone over to Trisport Lanzarote quite a bit. Friends with the guys over there. Yeah, so I'd actually a few training camps booked for myself and the athletes, and it actually worked out good, because on the day we were actually meant to fly over to Lanzarote last year, they locked down the island. So we were, even though we didn't get to go on a camp, but at least we were stuck here. Lanzarote anyways is definitely one of my favorite locations.
Good stuff. I'm not sure if do you follow the ITU triathlon much, the Olympics? Are you interested in that?
Not really. Yeah, not really. I do and I don't.
Would you have a top pick for winners, Olympic champion, male and female?
No, because the only really one who I know is that guy who's doing the 70.3 now. Is it the guy who won Kona or didn't win it?
Gustav Iden.
Yeah, him. Yeah, him. He definitely seems to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, him and Christian Blumenfeld, they're both Norwegian. Their plan is to do the Olympics and then go to Kona. So hopefully you see them in Kona. It'll be interesting to see how they fare out again.
Yeah, it'll be good. But first of all, I do really hope to see them there, but it'll be really interesting to see how they react to the conditions in Kona.
Yeah.
Because I've went to Kona in the majority of the years in absolute peak physical condition. It doesn't matter. It's just such a magic, special place. If it decides it's going to hammer you that day, it'll hammer you. So it's good, but at least they'll learn, or they may do well. Yeah. I don't think they'll win Kona. I think Ferdinand will win Kona along this year.
Well, that's my next question. Kona winners 2021, male and female.
Ferdinand and Reef, easy. They're just too dominant. Something has to happen for Dino and Reef for them not to win. A puncture or a sickness or something like that. For me, they are far, far too dominant. Like, my favorite Ironman athlete is Sanders. I love Ferdinand. I love following Neil Sanders, and I'd love to see him win Kona.
Good to see.
Yeah, but Ferdinand and Reef just seem to be so far ahead of the game.
I agree. Favorite post-race food?
Well, in Kona, just across from the finish line, those who have been there will know Splashers. It's, I forget the name of the burger, but it's humongous. And I'm normally sick as a pig when I'm eating it, but it's just a bacon cheeseburger with chips and a beer.
Lovely. Favorite film?
Well, that's a good one. Well, the one that popped into my head, I may as well say it, is Wolf of Wall Street.
Good stuff. Good film.
Yeah.
Have you got any pre-race rituals? Something you have to do, or?
Well, in Hawaii, I've always went down to the beach and said a prayer, or do you want to call it a prayer? I'm actually just so thankful to be there. That's really all I've done, and just to really ask for a safe race. That's really all I've ever done. Apart from the normal stuff, just being methodical with getting my gear and stuff ready. But other than that, no, not really.
Good stuff. Biggest inspiration, sporting or in life, just in general?
I've been asked this question loads and loads of times, and I always actually come up blank with this. Those who are inspiring me at the moment, but I couldn't say he's my biggest inspiration, is Sanders. I just like the way his approach to stuff. But I generally don't tend to look up to this, the superstars and that type of stuff too much, because I think people can only end up comparing themselves to those type of guys and girls, and want to be those type of guys and girls. And I think my biggest inspiration is actually myself, probably, because those who know me, I'm certainly not a big-headed, boastful type of a guy, but if I look after me, I'll be fine.
Good stuff. Sorry, I just had a plug on the laptop. It came up. It was about to die
That's okay.
there. That wanted to die, but
That's all right.
I think I heard the runner Jacob Ingebrigtsen, who just set a new record. Did you see that, Dylan? The new 5K,
No,
12:48 for 5K. He's a
how's
phenomenal.
that even?
He's only
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
20 years old, but he was asked a similar question of has any role models, and he was like, "Nah," he says, "I don't have role models because anyone that when I was younger done a good performance." He says, "I appreciate good performances, but," he says, "I just want to beat them." He says, and he says, "I just feel like I want to beat them." So
Yeah,
similar to
yeah.
yourself, just focus on yourself. If you could train for 1 week with any athlete in the world, who would it be?
Saunders.
Be good.
Yeah,
He's a
I know
crazy
it. He'd be
man, but
cracked.
he's a
He's
crazy
mental. He's
man,
clean,
but
man.
great.
He's clean, man.
It's class.
It's funny enough. I'm actually getting to like even Sam Long now. He seems for the first while he came across as a bit of a dick, but
Yeah,
yeah, he actually's coming across as quite good now. And but if I had to pick, it'd be
yeah,
if I had to make two choices, it would be Saunders because I think it'd be good fun and a bit of crack, even though quite serious. But if I really wanted the serious end of stuff, Frodeno.
yeah. Just for the numbers and the
Yeah.
professionalism.
He's
Good.
actually quite friendly, him, he is too, though. That day that we rode back with him in from back in the Queen K, and he's more than happy to chat to us and more than happy to give us little tips and stuff. So he was a super nice guy. Like,
Yeah,
I don't believe I've actually spoken to any professional, especially in Kona, that hasn't been courteous and hasn't been helpful and stuff like that. And if you think of the pressure that they're under there from the sponsors and all the bits and pieces in the week of Kona, I've very rarely heard of any of those pros, certainly in the last 10 or so years, being rude to anybody, which is good. It's testament to the sport.
yeah,
Even though there's just no drama queens there.
yeah. They're normal. They're normal people, I suppose. At the end of the day, and although they're some of them are big stars, they just, I think it humbles you just having to do the training, and they probably feel the same way as any of us might feel going to do a local sprint or Olympic. So it's the same. They appreciate it, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because for me anyway, personally, no matter how good you are, if you're the top professional or even the experience and stuff I have, if you can't make time for people who are trying to make their way up, well, there's a reward for them type of people. I think a lot of it mentioned it here. You're a dick for one of a better word, and you always make time for the people who are trying to get to your level or trying to be professional, to get to Kona or whatever, finish the 5K or do the first half Ironman, everything. If you can make time for them, you're a really good person. So
I think you're right there. It's a testimony to the sport, because even I'm hoping to have some professional athletes on the show, and even reaching out on Instagram and email them. Like, a lot of them have been more than willing to come on, and they're just busy. Like you mentioned Sam Long there. Hopefully I'll have him on this year at some stage. He's busy in some race prep at the moment, but he's like more than happy to come on, he said, later in the year, and some ITU guys coming up as well. So it's just
brilliant.
They're just some great people and happy to share, and they have great experience, but they're willing to share it on and inspire other people, same as yourself coming on here. And I think someone in a position who's just starting out, and you're extremely relatable because you're from Ireland. If someone's listening to this from Ireland, you're from Ireland as well, and they might see it local races, but there you are out in Kona 10 times, and it's just something people can take inspiration and motivation from, that it's possible for them to get the likes of where you're at, and
of course,
and get there. So thanks for coming on and giving us
your
tips. And
definitely.
Sorry,
anytime.
What was that?
No, it's been my pleasure anytime at all. It's good to talk and good to chat, and hopefully some people can take some goodness from this or some tips from it, and who knows.
Definitely a lot of value in there, a lot of tips, and I'm sure people will get motivation and be. I've already done a few hours training this morning, but I'll be even talking about racing and training. You want to get out the door again? I'll see if I'm alive.
The sooner the better that the racing goes back. The sooner the better, because it's for the social end of stuff, not the fact of actually racing. For this, we just need to get back to normality now, and we need to race, and we need to get out there, talk to people, and get our lives back to normal, and that's what we need to do.
That's it. Hopefully I see you at some races this year, Owen. Thanks a million for coming on.
No, you're welcome, man. No problem at all.
So, show's over. Thanks everybody for listening. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Owen. It was great to hear all about his training and his preparations for Ironman and for the Kona World Championships. We wish Owen all the best heading to his 11th Kona this October, and we thank him for his time coming on the show, giving us so much advice and tips and insight into his training. If you did enjoy the show, please subscribe, please leave a review and give us some feedback. Every wee bit helps, so I appreciate everyone that listens, and any shares and feedback's very much appreciated, so thank you. We'll be back next Wednesday with another great guest. Can't wait for you to hear this one, and yeah, stay tuned. Cheers.